Don't you fuck it up.
Brilliant. Thank you. That's a great start to our Free the Hounds podcast. Thanks, Mel. Welcome to Talking Couch Potatoes. This is the inaugural podcast for Free the Hounds. It's our first shot at this, so it's going to be fairly loose and light to begin with as we begin the process of developing, hopefully, what will become a new voice for Free the Hounds. My name's Matt. I am the podcast host, and with me I have Mel Harrison, who's president of Free the Hounds. We also have our producer Gemma in the room.
Hi Matt, how you going?
I'm not too bad. Looking forward to seeing what we can create together here. As I said, it's our first shot at this, and we'd love some support from anyone who's listening. You can email us at podcast@freethehounds.com.au if you have any suggestions, anything you want to hear. The goal is to create a voice for the hounds, create a voice for the goals of Free the Hounds. Mel, could you give us a sense of who Free the Hounds are, how it began, what it's all about?
Sure. Free the Hounds originally started in 2015. It was a Facebook group to discuss greyhound racing and the perils of it or the problems with it. It then sort of became too much for just a Facebook group, and so they started holding stalls at markets to engage the public further and to try and get the message out about what greyhound racing involved in Western Australia. And I guess it really hit the ground running when the first petition was going to be tabled in Parliament in 2017.
And there was a petition to
end greyhound racing in Western Australia. It got tabled by the Greens, and since then there's actually been 2 subsequent petitions.
How have they gone? How did the first petition go?
There was about 3,000 signatures on the first one. It was all handwritten, so a tiny petition. The second one in 2021, there was approximately 11,000 signatures. And then 2022, we tabled a third petition in October. That was partly online and partly handwritten, and there was over 18,000.
Awesome.
So we're definitely getting some momentum.
Yep.
Still not the figures that we'd like, but this is, I guess, the reason for the podcast is trying to get our voice out there on as many mediums as we can and making the public aware, because that's something that we find often talking to people is they're not even aware that racing still occurs, let alone every single day in Western Australia.
Okay. And you're the president of Free the Hounds. Is it a full-time sort of thing?
It is a full-time thing, but it's something that I do in a volunteer capacity around my normal job and my 4 children. And I've got my 2 greyhounds at home, Anna and Gina, who are the loves of my life as well. I think once you start to see what greyhounds are like as pets, you really realise that they deserve so much love and respect not to be used as a commodity within racing.
They are. I am also a very proud greyhound owner of Bunny and Bo. So, yeah, I can verify that they are beautiful, beautiful little couch potatoes. What sort of stuff do you do? Do you have events? Do you have stalls? Do you have fundraisers?
Well, this year we had our first ever trivia night, which was an absolute blast. It was great. So we'll be doing that next year. In September, we have our Hounds Day Out, which is one day, once a year, that we hold an event that's all about greyhounds.
I have been to that one.
It's great.
I've never seen so many hounds together all at once.
There is the Global Greyhound Walk on the 24th of September.
24th of September. Please bring your hounds.
Houndy.
Is it only hounds? Are we exclusive to the hounds? Are we excluding other breeds?
No, not at all. As long as your dog is under control and they're not a dog that's going to be overly excited with greyhounds, because some greyhounds are only just coming out of the industry and are only just becoming aware of other breeds now. Okay. So obviously we don't want them to have a bad reaction.
Mel, I've heard something about Free the Snoot. What's Free the Snoot?
Okay, so many of you have seen photos with greyhounds with the cage on, as people call it. It's a muzzle.
And that's not mandatory anymore, is it?
No, that's what Free the Snoot was.
Right.
We were lucky enough to have it removed from WA legislation.
You were responsible for that.
Free the Hounds definitely had a hand in it, pushing politicians, pushing the public, raising awareness about the fact that greyhounds are going to continually be looked at as
demonised.
Exactly, or something different because they're wearing the muzzle.
That's a big win.
It was massive. It went through with the puppy farming legislation, and it was
brilliant.
Given royal assent in 2021.
So greyhound racing, is it popular in WA? Is it a big thing? Does it make a lot of money? Does it have a big audience? Like, what are you up against?
Really depends on who you talk to. And I guess this is part of the process that Free the Hounds are going through. We call ourselves an advocacy group because it is about education. It's about us learning what is involved in the industry or the sport in Western Australia, because I don't think that there is a lot of awareness, even for participants themselves. I don't think that they realise some of the things that go on. I know our current Minister Whitby, he wasn't aware of some of the things either. So it's really about education and trying to understand better. So if you ask the pros, it's a massive, massive sport where there's, thousands of jobs. If you dig down and look at some real literature and real figures, it's not.
I heard that if you boil down to it, there's only around 20 people in the state at this epicentre of greyhound racing in WA.
Correct. There's approximately 20 people, the last time we asked under Freedom of Information, that declare GST for their participation in greyhound racing.
That's their main.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's their main source of income, or they're earning enough to be registered for GST. So anybody else that doesn't do that is classed as a hobbyist. So if you're a hobbyist and it's your hobby, you would presume that those people have jobs, other forms of income. Because as a hobby, they don't have to pay tax on it. So then you think, well, surely there's not enough. They're not making enough from their hobby to live off.
Right. So what do you think in terms of this podcast? What are you hoping we can achieve together?
Getting the word out. As I said, we're really keen to use any kinds of platforms to get our information out. But it's also to hopefully draw in people that are possibly on the other end of the spectrum.
I was one of those.
Spectrum's the right word.
I was definitely one of those. Yeah.
Let's say on the other side of the fence then, and that, pro racers. Let's hear from some people that agree with racing.
Is that a call? A call?
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to have a discussion. Yeah, absolutely.
Reach out to those who are either on the fence or on the other side of the fence.
Let's talk about it. And if there's things that we're getting wrong, educate us. I think to have greyhound owners talk to us about different things that they have going on with their dog. Does their dog have pannus? Do they need help with different things?
What is pannus?
Pannus is a condition in the eyes of greyhounds. It is hereditary, they've found out, so it's really unfortunate that some of the breeding lines that they use continue to have that in it. But yeah, things like pannus, or people that have had good outcomes with dog physiotherapy, things like that. It'd be really nice to have this podcast be somewhere where people could listen in and get helpful information about the care of their greyhound. It's not just about being against greyhound racing.
Right, awesome. I would have loved that when we first got Bunny and Bo.
I mean, we're very lucky. I think once you get a greyhound, you kind of join a cult.
It is cultish, isn't it? I found that. It is very cultish.
Yeah,
I'm sure every dog owner loves their dog, but there's something about greyhounds that turns you into a bit of a fundamentalist maniac.
Yeah. And I think too, people just imagine that they're such a pointy, skinny, hard kind of breed.
That's exactly what I thought when I first saw them.
And they're nothing like that. They're
the softest little things, aren't they?
Most gentle dogs that think they are lap dogs generally.
And the other myth is that because they race, they need like a big yard, they need lots of running around. Actually, they're, what are we called? Talking couch potatoes. They're actual couch potatoes. How many hours do greyhounds sleep per day?
I reckon they could sleep for 23. Yeah, they're definitely sprinters. They're not endurance runners. Obviously, you get those that do like to walk more, but generally it's 2 half-hour walks a day. As long as they've got a human in their sight or a teddy that they love,
they're all good.
Then they're happy.
Yep.
They're just such a loyal, loving dog. And I think any racer would tell you that that's part of what makes their breed so easy to train is the fact that they are like that. Their temperament is like that, which kind of also makes it really...
a bit sad, isn't it?
Yeah, it makes it even more...
Temperament's being taken advantage of.
Yeah, exactly. And this whole rhetoric of, but they love to race...
That's a bit of a myth, isn't it? Like, they do love to have a quick sprint.
They love to run.
Right.
Racing is a man-made concept.
What's the difference?
Running is for the joy of it. It's not about going around a track that causes injuries to these dogs, because the formation of the track alone is made for man, because we can see them when they take off.
Right.
And we can see them come across the finish line.
Yep.
But the shape of the track is causes them harm. I mean, that's why so many greyhounds injure their right hock, their right rear leg, because of the propulsion going around the track, and the same as their front foreleg.
And that's something I think we probably should do a deep dive into at some point, because I've read some of the stats and it's really quite shocking, actually, the injuries and death. I'm thinking that we could dedicate a whole podcast to that.
Yeah, we'd love to get a vet on too, and possibly people that have really great products out there for dogs, like Simply Seaweed and things like that help with greyhound teeth.
Yep.
They have, unfortunately, usually quite bad teeth because of the structure of their jaws. Yeah, there's lots of tidbits and ideas.
So it sounds like you're imagining this could help new greyhound owners.
Absolutely.
With some tips and tricks.
Yep.
We could have some serious conversations with maybe people who disagree. With Free the Hounds opinions. Any other thoughts about what you imagine the podcast to look like?
It'd be nice to have some fun too. Tell us about the craziest, nuttiest thing that your greyhound has ever done.
Because they are crazy dogs. They're weird, aren't they? They do zoomies. For those who don't know what a zoomie is.
The greyhound scream of death.
What's the scream of death? Can you do an impression?
No, I wouldn't put you through that. But it's when they might touch a leaf that they don't like.
Yep.
And they scream this blood-curdling scream, and there's actually nothing really wrong. But then when they really hurt themselves, they are so stoic and barely make a sound.
Okay.
So it's very funny, but it's also really quite sad. There's a lot of different topics, as you've said.
So
if our listeners would like to give us any ideas, there will be obviously things that hit the media. We'll talk about those. We're hoping to let our listeners know about injuries that occur each month, special events that will happen.
There'll be petitions.
So
there's a lot of serious,
there's
a really serious side to this, and just want to honour the work you've done with Free the Hounds and the commitment you put into it, because it's a huge job. It should be a full-time paid job, but you do it all from the love of your heart. And it's a serious thing that we're going to talk about, which is finding a voice for the voiceless and trying to reduce the sort of cruelty and injuries that we know that these beautiful creatures suffer. So we will have a bit of fun, but there'll be, I guess, some serious things to discuss as we move along. And
we will also have, hopefully, rehoming groups on as well, and maybe we can have a foster of the fortnight dog where we'll do their profile and let you know how they're doing. And
we could maybe even interview. Do they interview well, greyhounds? Do they,
if you like snoring or heavy breathing.
Right.
Absolutely.
That sounds really good to promote the rehoming of these gorgeous creatures. I think we have done enough for our first podcast. I'm getting applause from the producer, so we must have done something right. We'd love some feedback, by the way, podcast@freethehounds.com.au. If you are listening and you have divergent viewpoints, we are open to divergent viewpoints. We would love to educate each other, understand each other, and move forward in a way that means these gorgeous creatures can have a voice and a place, hopefully on a comfy couch.
Absolutely. That's the goal, isn't it, for everybody? And I mean, you've touched on a really good point there, Matt, is that at the end of the day, okay, we might really oppose each other as viewpoints, the pros and the antis, but as much as we might dislike each other, the whole point is the greyhounds. Anti-people aren't anti-greyhounds, they're anti what happens to them.
Right.
So if we could sort of come together.
And I'm sure the same for the pro racers.
Oh,
I'm sure they're not anti-greyhound. I'm sure they're not purposely wanting to harm these creatures. So.
Absolutely. I fully believe that many of them love these dogs. Are they the same way that you and I see loving a creature? Or probably not, but...
Let's have a chat about it.
Absolutely.
Let's work it out. All right, thank you very much. Please get in touch. We're going to build more and more as we go. Yep. We're hoping to have maybe even a live podcast at some stage.
Eventually, if we can get some people to ring in and when we'll have a chat, we'll probably let you know what the topic of that podcast might be.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more structure than this, won't there, Mel? This has been absolute Greyhound's breakfast. Please share this with as many people as you can. Get them to listen to it. Yep. We're talking couch potatoes, the fastest couch potatoes in the world. I hope you've enjoyed it. The Free the Hounds website is freethehounds.com.au. Thank you, Mel Harrison, President and tireless worker for the Hounds. Thank you for my producer who told me I'm breathing too heavily. It's Talking Couch Potatoes. Thank you for listening.